Ronan, our next speaker is Gary Ronahan from Shell to Sea, and can I say that as we meet here today, Pat O'Donnell has been in the Midlands prison for 6 months, in the Western prison for 6 months, Niall Hartnett for some months, and today Maura Harrington was in prison. It's an absolute outrage that people who have simply stood up to fight for our natural resources belonging to the Irish people should be behind bars, while those who have caved in our economy and caused this dreadful crisis are still living in luxury. What an outrage. Gary.
Thanks very much, Joe. My name is Gary, speaking here on behalf of Dublin Shell to Sea today. Accordia, the right-wing political establishment, the quack economists and their cheerleaders in the media continue to repeat the mantra that there's no alternative. No alternative to mass unemployment, no alternative to pay cuts for workers, no alternative to cuts in social welfare, no alternative to driving the majority into poverty so the wealthy elite and the bank of friends of Fianna Fáil can be saved. When Brian Lenihan introduced last year's austerity budget, he said, and I quote, "There is no pot of gold that can be raided from the wealthy that can solve our difficulties." Mr. Lenihan obviously didn't look too far. Perhaps the Minister of Finance might like to talk to his brother Conor, who is Junior Minister for Natural Resources. Conor might tell him about the hundreds of billions of euros worth of oil and gas that lie in the seabed right around the coast of Ireland. Just last April, for example, in Dalkey Head, South Dublin, it was announced that 870 million barrels of oil had been discovered in the Kish Basin. This is by any reckoning a very substantial pot of gold. This particular pot in Dalkey, however, is owned by one Tony O'Reilly, owner of Providence Oil and the Independent Group newspapers. The reason Tony O'Reilly owns our oil in Dalkey is because Fianna Fáil handed over the ownership and control of our oil and gas in the 1990s. The Dalkey find is but one of a substantial number of fields that have substantial reserves of oil and gas in Ireland. Use the billions of euros of oil and gas wealth to create jobs for workers, to fund our schools and hospitals. So, Mr. Lenihan, the alternative to the austerity budget and the poverty programme you are imposing on the workers of this country is to take back control of our oil and gas from the oil multinationals and use it for the benefit of all the people. Because this wealth rightly belongs to all the people of Ireland and should not be used to generate obscene profits for multinationals like Shell, who declared profits last year of 12.7 billion. This is a company with a track record of human rights abuses, environmental destruction and financial corruption. A company that has trampled over the rights of people of North West Mayo to impose a highly dangerous gas pipeline project in Rossport. Just last December, and Bord Panola rejected Shell's proposals because of the potential danger the pipeline posed to nearby residents. Shell's disregard for the safety is evident by the fact that it has contracted Transocean, the company responsible for the explosion on the BP rig in the Gulf of Mexico that killed 11 oil workers and created an environmental catastrophe the like of which the world has never seen. On behalf of Dublin Shell to Sea, I would like to extend our sympathies to the families of those 11 workers and our solidarity to the communities who are suffering the consequences of BP's decision to put profit before people. We here in Ireland know what it's like to fight oil companies. Currently there are 3 Shell to Sea activists in prison for daring to stand up to the might of Shell. I would like you all to send a huge message of support to Pat O'Donnell, Niall Hartnett and Maura Harrington, who have been in prison for defending their communities. Their selflessness, commitment and courage stands in marked contrast to the corrupt, venal, money-grabbing bankers who Fianna Fáil and the Green Party are so keen to protect. Why is this state jailing Shell to Sea activists for defending the rights of their community while people like Shawnee Fitzpatrick and Michael Fingerton are free to jet around the world on golfing holidays? Accordia, Pat, Niall and Maura should be released from prison immediately and the banking elite should take up their prison cells. It is time for the people of this country to stand up and say enough is enough. To demand that their oil and gas are reclaimed and to be used for the benefit of people. Finally, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million for that, Gary. Now, James O'Toole from the Socialist Workers' Party. Please welcome James.
There he is. This building right here facing us is not a bank, believe it or not. It's a church. It's a cathedral for the sickest religion that the human race has ever known. the sickest religion, the religion of greed, the religion of capitalism, upon which they want to sacrifice the lone parents, they want to sacrifice the pensioners, and they won't stop until we get organised, until we fight back. But the thing is, when you talk about fighting back, or we talk about alternatives, you know, media commentators in the right wing will always say that we don't have an alternative. But the thing is, we do have alternatives. It's just that they don't like our alternatives. For example, with the banking crisis. Well, you know, I think we should take the banks into, we should nationalise all the banks. They should have done that at the start of the crisis. But the thing is, these nationalised banks, you know, we obviously know that we can't leave them in the hands of Fianna Fáil. We know we can't leave them in the hands of Fine Gael and Labour. But then whose hands are they going to be left in? Well, there's only one answer. Your hands, the people of this country, the working class people of this country, are the only people in this country whose hands I trust the wealth of this country in. But the thing is, if we're going to fight to achieve this, and if we're going to struggle to achieve this, the only way we're going to have to achieve this is if we're organised. But you know, if you look at our unions, the organisations that, you know, that are supposed to, you know, fight on behalf of the working class, and through which we're supposed to fight, well, the leadership of our unions, Jack O'Connor, for example, was voted Businessman of the Month by a business and finance website, who think that Jack O'Connor is a great example of business acumen because he recommended the Croke Park deal. So what, you know, these are the people we're supposed to follow around on the streets or whatever. But the thing is, there's a reason why Jack O'Connor can sell the deals that he can sell, and there's a reason why he can demoralise people and get away with it. Because we're not organised in the grassroots of the unions. We have to use the energy of demonstrations like this, and the demonstration outside the IBEC dinner, the Right to Work demonstration. We have to take the passion and anger that we've seen on those demonstrations and take them back into the unions. Because when people like Jack O'Connor say we're not going to go out on strike, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to do what the Greeks have done, and we need to be able to walk out on strike and drag the bureaucracy behind us. The thing is, I just want to finish on this. Just two announcements in terms of the Right to Work campaign. On August the 7th, we're having a fundraiser because we want to build, there's a fundraiser in the Teachers Club at 7:30 on August the 7th, because we want to build for a massive street festival on August the 28th. And what we're going to do is, because the unemployed in this country don't get a holiday, and we've just heard earlier on that Johnny Ronan is getting another bailout, so he'll probably be off on holiday to Morocco, but the rest of us don't get to go on holiday. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a protest on Saturday the 28th of August, and it's going to culminate in a street festival down at the Central Bank on Dame Street, where we're going to take over the street. We're going to have music and bands, and we're going to give the unemployed the holiday that we can't afford.